Have you ever wondered if time is actually real? I'm not talking about being late for work or forgetting someone's birthday. I'm talking about time as a concept. That thing you believe is flowing right now. Tick-tock, tick-tock. What if it never really existed? What if everything, absolutely everything you believe about the past, the present, and the future is completely wrong? It's already dropped some disturbing clues. Einstein once said that past, present, and future are just a stubbornly persistent illusion. But what if it's more than an illusion? What if it's a trap? You were born, you're here watching this right now, but what if all of it is happening at the same time? What if you've never moved from your original place in the universe, always stuck in a single frozen moment? Like a still image pretending to move. If that's true, it changes everything. And here's the question that might blow your mind. Why hasn't anyone told you this before? Subscribe to the channel and hit the bell. Because yes, the YouTube algorithm sees this as valuable, and it'll keep sending you more content like this. And trust me, you'll want to watch this until the very end. Because if time isn't real, what else are we believing that might not exist at all? You probably grew up believing that time is like a river, flowing in one direction, from the past to the future, and that you're just a passenger, floating along, second by second, minute by minute. But what if that image is wrong? In fact, some of the brightest minds in science believe that time, as we understand it, is just a construct, something we invented to make sense of the world, but that doesn't actually exist the way we think it does. When modern physics tries to describe the universe, from the Big Bang to the tiniest subatomic particles, time starts to disappear from the equations. Literally, it vanishes. And that's a problem, a massive problem. Because if time isn't real, then what is? And what does that mean for us? Are we just playing our roles in a story that's already written, where past, present, and future exist side by side like pages in a closed book? Are we reliving the same moments forever? Or are our memories, our decisions, our pain and victories just a well-crafted simulation, like a movie looping in the background of some machine? This video isn't just a scientific journey. It's a deep dive into a radical idea that could completely change how you see your own existence. So let me ask you, do you believe time is real? Or is it just the greatest illusion in the history of humankind? When you look at a clock, you think you're seeing time, but what you're really seeing is just numbers, symbols trying to represent something no one has ever truly touched, measured with absolute precision, or even proven to objectively exist. Let's start at the beginning. Our concept of time was born from observing movement. The sun crossing the sky, seasons changing, bodies aging. But movement is just that, a change in position through space. So time is how we perceive that change. But what if that perception is wrong? Picture this, you're watching a movie. On the screen, things happen, action, emotion, progression. But in reality, it's all just still images. Frozen frames moving too fast for your brain to notice the gap. The illusion of motion happens in your mind. What if reality is just like that? What if the universe is made of frames, frozen moments that don't move at all? What if time is simply how your consciousness interprets the transition between these frames? This isn't just philosophy. Modern physics, especially Einstein's theory of relativity, suggests that time and space are part of a single entity, space-time, a four-dimensional fabric where everything already exists. Past, present, and future aren't moving. They just are. You're not moving through time. You're fixed at one specific point in this fabric. The feeling that time is flowing, that's just your mind flipping through pages in a cosmic book. But the whole book is already written. If that's true, and many theories point in that direction, then there's no future waiting to unfold. It's already there. And the past? It never went anywhere. The now is just your current location in the timeline. And that brings us to a crushing question. If time doesn't pass, is change even real? Are your decisions truly yours? Or have they already been made by you in a frozen configuration of space-time? Free will, as we know it, might just be a performance. And freedom? It might be a beautifully constructed illusion. But before you think this is just poetic overthinking, enter quantum mechanics to mess it all up even further. In the quantum world, particles can be in two places at once. They don't have defined positions until they're observed. That's Schrödinger's cat, alive and dead until you peek inside the box. But what happens if we look at time the same way we look at particles? In 2020, physicists ran an experiment using atoms trapped in waves of light. The more they tried to observe what was happening, the more time itself seemed to slow down. At quantum scales, just observing reality appears to freeze it. It's as if looking too hard makes time stop. This was called the quantum Zeno effect, a paradox where time doesn't flow if you observe it too much. It sounds like science fiction, but it's real science. And that leads to a terrifying idea. Maybe time only exists when you're not looking. If all of this is true, what's left? A fractured reality. Each moment an isolated island, and what connects them is only your consciousness drifting across them. You're never moving. You never left your place. You're simply waking up in different frames, like a movie being watched by someone outside the screen. Maybe that someone is you, from a higher layer of reality. Or maybe it's no one. And if that's the case, what does that say about life, about death, about the meaning of being here, now? Maybe the biggest lie isn't time itself, but what time made us believe about who we are. Now imagine this. You're standing still, literally, not moving a muscle, not blinking, not even breathing. And yet, you still feel time passing. But what's really changing? That's the paradox. Because if nothing changes, why does it feel like something is moving? The answer lies at the core of one of the oldest debates in both philosophy and science, the illusion of motion. Zeno of Elea, a Greek philosopher from over 2,000 years ago, saw this. He created the famous Achilles and the tortoise paradox. Even though Achilles runs faster, he never catches up to the tortoise because there's always some small distance left to cover, always more time to pass. Zeno was hinting at something modern scientists are only now starting to consider seriously. Motion might not exist, at least not the way we think. Here's where the idea of discrete time comes in. The notion that time is made of tiny, indivisible units called Planck times. Like time isn't a flowing river, but a series of frozen snapshots, like a cosmic GIF looping at a frequency too fast to detect. But if time moves in pulses, what happens between those pulses? The most likely answer, nothing. There is no between. The universe simply jumps from one state to the next. No transition, no real motion, just the sudden appearance of a new frame, like changing one image for another. Now think, if time is discrete, not continuous, then the idea of cause and effect starts to collapse. Because for one thing to cause another, there has to be some connection between them. But if time is jumping frame by frame, maybe there is no connection, only a sequence like pre-rendered frames. This concept of a fixed, unchanging universe made of frozen frames is known as eternalism. According to eternalism, every moment of your life, your birth, school days, first kiss, the heartbreak you never healed from, still exists. All of it, and always will. Because it's written somewhere in space-time. You're not living in real time. You're simply experiencing a frozen narrative where everything that will happen already has. Sounds absurd, right? until science starts agreeing. Einstein's special relativity already showed us that time isn't absolute. Two observers moving at different speeds can witness the same events happening in different orders. That means one person's now could be another person's future or past. In other words, the present is subjective. There's no universal now. And if the present doesn't really exist, what does? Here comes the gut punch. If everything that exists is encoded in a reality block, a universe frozen in place, then even our idea of death gets turned upside down. Because death isn't the end of anything. It's just a fixed point on a line where other parts of your existence are still alive. You, as a child, still exist. That moment of love in the middle of chaos, still there. The scream that no one heard, still there too. If you are a sequence of frames, every frame exists simultaneously. And if this sounds like fiction, remember that modern physics already treats time like a spatial coordinate, something you can map, bend, simulate. Physicists have been trying for decades to discover the elementary particle of time, a fundamental, indivisible unit to explain how time truly works. But what if that particle doesn't exist? What if time is just a symptom of our consciousness? Now comes the most terrifying question of all. If time isn't real, are you? So far, we've broken down the idea that time is a continuous line. We've explored how it might be an illusion, a mental construct, or even something that only emerges through consciousness. But now we go deeper, because if time isn't real, then what is reality? Imagine for a moment that you're inside a video game, a virtual world where everything that exists is just data. What you see on the screen, the mountains, the sky, the characters, it's just the interface, a visible layer covering something far deeper. That's an analogy many serious scientists are starting to explore. Maybe the universe is a kind of simulation, not necessarily created by someone, but perhaps a self-existing mathematical process. And time, it's just the sensation of frame loading, like a game transitioning between scenes. You think you're watching movement, but you're just witnessing the switch between pre-calculated states. Sounds insane, until you remember that modern physics already accepts that reality isn't made of solid stuff, but of information. Atoms, particles, energy fields, they're just manifestations of structured data. You're not made of things. You're made of instructions, probabilities, vibrations in the void. And maybe, in that void, time doesn't exist because time only appears when there's an observer. And here comes one of the most bizarre and beautiful ideas in quantum physics. Consciousness creates time. The mere act of you experiencing something transforms a static universe into a story. Time is born out of your awareness. Without consciousness, there is no before or after. There is nothing. That changes everything. Because then the real question isn't what is time, but what is consciousness? What if consciousness, and only consciousness, transforms the frozen frames of the universe into a living narrative? In that case, consciousness isn't just a biological byproduct. It's the force that animates the cosmos. Maybe that's why spiritual traditions, from the Vedas to the Sufi mystics, have always described awakening as a way to transcend time. Because once you wake up, you see the whole, the entire block. Time becomes the veil, the illusion that makes the experience possible. And here's another unsettling thought. If everything exists now, past and future equally present, then your pain might never have ended. But at the same time, your joy might never have left. Every emotion, every memory, every moment still exists, fixed in space-time, like art on the cosmic wall. And you're always visiting those paintings, not to change them, but to live them again. And maybe that is eternity, not a never-ending timeline, but a dimension where everything exists at once, where death isn't vanishing but just moving to a new location in the narrative. A version of you will always exist somewhere along the line. That brings us to Edgar Allan Poe, not a physicist, but a visionary. He wrote that the universe is not eternal but finite and dynamic, and that there may be other universes, inaccessible but real. Today, science is catching up. The idea of a multiverse is no longer sci-fi. It's a valid hypothesis. There could be infinite versions of you, each in a different frame, living different choices, feeling different emotions. And if that's true, then freedom returns. Not as a linear choice, but as variability. You are not a line. You are a field of possibilities. And now comes the final twist. If all moments exist and all yous coexist, then maybe you never really die. At least not in the way you fear. You just shift focus, move your awareness to another point in space-time, and continue, one way or another. If time really is an illusion, then everything you've ever lived is still there, untouched, still happening. And maybe, just maybe, that's what people meant by immortality. Have you ever wondered, what if all of this is true? If time is just an illusion, if reality is made of frozen frames, if you are just a point of awareness moving through a film that's already written, then maybe your greatest freedom isn't changing the script, but waking up inside it, seeing what's always been there, feeling what you never noticed, accepting that life doesn't need a beginning, middle, and end to be real. And if you've made it this far, it means some part of you has already started to wake up. But there are still more questions we need to face. If everything exists all at once, if every moment is forever etched into the fabric of the universe, what else is hidden beneath the illusion of time? And why were we programmed never to notice? If you want to keep pulling on that thread, there's another video waiting for you right now. Just click. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.